Cerner has so many clicks. Just have to click all these things that I want. I'm going to select all this stuff and then get this menu that comes up. I got to check I want the medication list and whatever else. I'll click OK. And now it loads. I've got to say one click for yes, 2 clicks. Okay, so Cerner has too many clicks. This is a complaint that I've heard for years, generally from people who are not actively using the system, but have used it at one point in time. And it's a valid concern, right? There is sometimes a hyper focus on number of clicks that it takes to get to a desired outcome, but it reflects the fact that physicians are often just a cog in the healthcare information machine, and they have to devote a lot of time working for the EMR by inputting a lot of data versus having the EMR work for them. And that is a shame, but it doesn't mean you're hopeless. So when we talk about Cerner having too many clicks, there's a few main things we want to consider, right? The first is, what is your build? Right? This right here, I'm looking at a Power Note. Power Notes are notoriously click heavy, right? You do have the option to use free text, this selection here, and you can dictate into Power Notes, but notoriously they have a lot of clicks to make documentation happen. And thankfully, they are the older kind of documentation. They're being replaced by dynamic documentation. That's a completely different method of documentation where you use this workflow menu here and you select your note type at the bottom. You use dictation generally. You can type. There's auto text. There's tagging text, lab results, and images, and that's how you create your notes. A completely different method of creating a note, right? And that is going to be a lot less click heavy. So the first thing to consider is what's your build? What tools do you have available to you just based on how your EMR is built? Cerner is not the same at every health system across the country. So just because you've used Cerner at one place does not mean you've used the same iteration of Cerner at another place. I've seen health systems that are a decade or more apart on build, and they're in the same city. So the second thing to consider is, what does your health system require, or what does your insurer require, right? Cerner as a platform, Cerner as a medical record does not require you to input any specific kind of data typically, right? What's being requested of you is coming from your payers, or it's coming from your health system that wants you as the doctor to document X, Y, or Z, or whatever it is. Another aspect of this is other tools of documentation that are a little bit less user-friendly, like Power Forms, for example. I'll go ahead and open up one of these so you can take a look. Many folks undoubtedly use these Power Forms. There's generally not any dictation you can do in these. They're really just a lot of buttons to click, and there's no getting around that. So whether this is going to be something that you have to fill out or someone on your staff fills it out, it totally depends on where you're at and what you're doing. But Power Forms are another method of documentation that hopefully you're not doing your complete note in, but they are generally required for a whole handful of reasons. And no, they're not fun to use. So the third thing to consider is, what's your process, right? So we talked about what tools do you have available? What does your health system require? And then within the construct of those two, how do you personally use the system? So this can mean a couple different things. If you're using a Power Note, are you using macros? Are you using pre-completed notes? If you don't know what those things are, be sure to check out the other videos on this channel that explain those items in a little bit more depth. If you're using dynamic documentation, or you're using the workflow menu to create your note, are you dictating? Do you have the option to dictate? If you are dictating, are you using auto text, and are you using dictation commands to input that auto text, right? Those things combined can save you a whole lot of time. When it comes to orders, are you clicking that plus sign and searching for the name of the order that you want every time? Or are you using favorite orders? If you have not clicked this little arrow right here, then you probably have not created custom folders for your favorite orders and organized them according to your preference. And what do I mean by that? Back on this Quick Orders M page, you can move these things around. You can create your own folders and import them to this page. You can sort them by patient type, by diagnosis, by payer, whatever works for you. It's really up to you, but only if you specify your favorite orders and create custom folders. So again, if you're finding that Cerner has too many clicks, or you've heard that complaint and you're afraid of using Cerner, or whatever it is, consider first, what is the build of the system that you're using? What tools do you have access to? All right. And once you figure that out, what does the health system require? What is not actually a feature of the software, but what's being put on you by payers or by health systems? Okay. And then within that structure, how do you use the system? Have you taken every opportunity to streamline your use of the system? If you haven't, please do. You can save yourself loads of time and a ton of headaches.